I
You know,
knew
and
you'd find it.
which one's he?
I believe in you.
Don't.
It just.
We're live.
We're live.
Version came out.
I'll cut this out. Don't worry.
I don't need to edit.
Edited for television.
Yeah.
For younger viewers.
No one was harmed in this picture.
Yeah. Yet. All right. Death of Sarah.
Yeah.
I think the reason Abraham like negotiated, even though they were going to give him the land, is he still did not want he did not want to be beholding to them. He didn't want them to owe him anything.
That's what you think, huh?
That's what I think.
Negotiated for,
The land for Sarah to be buried on, for the cave. He said no, 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 and he kept coming back, and that's what I think.
Okay.
Because that was God's thing with him. He wanted to pay his way.
Could be.
this area, this one that I read, it said that, it seemed to be that, that was just part of the, way that they did things back then, that they tried to, it was setting a price, the negotiation was setting a price, even though it was set before it, so he offered it free, but they didn't really mean it, it was kind of going to be negotiated. And then it said Abraham also thought that that ground was going to be his family, his descendants anyway, in the future, and he wanted to be buried and be stayed there with his tribes.
Yeah. In the Bible, whenever they go into a lot of detail, now, you guys are both right, because Abraham never wanted to just take anything from him. And usually when something seems really strange to us, oh, thank you, Tom. When anything seems really weird and really specific, the Bible's given us some extra details. And it's really weird because 3 times he says, I give you the field, I give you the cave, I give it to you in the presence of my people. That was part of the bargaining process, like Doctor's Bible says. They seem like they're giving something to you, but they're just like putting the hook out there. So,
Putting the hook out.
yeah.
One of the Bible that I had at home said it was an Oriental negotiating,
bargaining.
and I'm thinking, Oriental? So,
Really?
yeah. But it was kind of odd, I thought, first you say, I want it, and then you ask to be give it to me, and then you pay for it.
Yeah,
Kind of opposite of what you think.
it's really weird. It's not the way we do things, but that's their
That's
process.
what mine said too, Oriental bargaining.
Yeah.
Really?
Really?
So he ended up with not only the cave, but the land and the trees. And Swindoll suggested that if it would only been the cave, the owner would have been responsible for taxes. I don't know how he came up with that. So it had to be all. So kind of strange he had to buy his own future promised land
Yeah.
first.
So I
than he
wonder
owned.
if you had to pay more because there's more trees, because I thought that was kind of odd to mention the trees, because of course they come with the land. I mean, I didn't get that. That just seemed kind of unusual.
It's like accessories with a car.
Yes, right. That's
Oh, you want a door? That's extra.
You want the trees.
You want windows? Sure, we can do that.
And what kind of trees were they?
Oh.
There was something,
I think he said
Useful.
oak.
Could be. Oak.
Oh.
So that would have been useful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's part of the bargaining process. And one of the commentaries I read said $400 was probably too much for that land. So he got overcharged, but Abraham, being the guy he was, didn't want to cause trouble, plus he was probably outnumbered, and he went along with the price. One thing that I thought was strange, back in verse 2, it says, Abraham went to mourn for Sarah. And I'm wondering, does that mean he wasn't with her at the time? Or was he somewhere else and then he went to her side? But I couldn't find anything, any details about what that really meant.
Yeah.
So, just kind of strange to me. Let's see, what else here? Yeah, 400 shekels was a high price.
Would you be about 10 pounds, the notes say?
Pardon?
10 pounds is what one of the
Yeah.
commentary says.
Yep.
Oh, that went, Jim?
What's
Mine says either from Bathsheba to Huron or into where Sarah's body was lying.
Okay.
That's what the went means.
So he was somewhere, he was somewhere else?
Mm-hmm. No,
It means he wasn't in the build, or the,
right, he wasn't in her her
he
room or
wasn't
wherever
in the
she was
tent.
when she died.
Okay.
So, and his 3 sons lived.
The 3 sons lived in the tent?
It was also the town of 4, referring to the place where Anak and his 3 sons lived. So she died in somebody else's tent.
Strange.
Mm-hmm. But, okay.
So the whole process of burial in those days.
Maybe they were taking care of her. Because he
Isn't that
didn't.
Isn't that
Right.
tradition back then, is you had to take care of your elder parents?
Yep.
Yeah, she wasn't in her own tent. So it says where Sarah's body was lying. So she was in somebody else's tent.
That burial site became important for all the way all through the end of Genesis.
Yeah, because
And
a
Joseph.
lot of the family members were there.
Mhm.
And it said that burial land was really important to the Israelites because they were nomads at that time and they wanted a permanent place. Just like the promised land was going to be permanent for them, they wanted a permanent burial place. So that's why it was.
Have they ever
important.
looked for that site?
No, I think they built a temple or a shrine over the top of it.
I think we saw that last week. Let's see here.
But in today's world.
So Mount Moriah was where the Dome of the Rock is, and how close is that to Mamre? Yeah, it's a little distance away. It's on the map that Deb gave us last week. So Mamre, where she died and where they got the burial place was here, and the temple is here. So Sarah's burial place is here, and the temple, the Dome of the Rock is over here. So a little bit distance away.
If you Google it, they show you a shrine or
Okay.
something built supposedly right over the top.
So I wonder if it's a different shrine.
It don't like a church. I
Okay.
thought it was kind of interesting that, the bones would decay, and then they would collect them and put them in what they called an ossuary box.
Huh.
So, after 300, 400 years.
Yeah.
that's what they do in like New Orleans
Mhm.
type of thing, because they can put so many bones in there.
And they
James
had
is,
I think in Czechoslovakia, they call them ossuaries, and it's just a place where the bones are kept.
supposedly they found James's ossuary box, Jesus'
Really?
brother.
Wow.
Right.
So,
DNA.
Yeah.
yeah, DNA, I don't know.
That's why I think it'd be fun to go to the Holy Land someday. What else do we have in chapter 23 that's interesting?
Does it give any hint as to how old Isaac was when she died?
No.
How old he was?
Well, how old was she when she,
She was 90?
90.
Yeah,
No,
120.
she was 127.
Yeah, when she died.
Mhm.
So, he was,
When did,
she
when
was
she
90
died,
when he was born.
was it 90?
So he was like 26, 30.
37.
37.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
and that
That's
makes
why he
sense.
needed to get a wife.
It was relatively
Yeah.
young,
Yeah.
Yeah, because
37.
one of the commentaries I read Isaac was 40 when he met Rebekah. So, chapter 24 didn't happen immediately
Right,
after
right.
Sarah died. It was like 3 extra years. I'm gonna jot that note down here.
Well, it would have taken time for them to travel to find her.
Yeah.
That would have taken a substantial amount of time, I bet. All the camels and the jewels and everything that they were taking
Yeah,
to.
it really is.
Isaac was 40. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he was 37 when Sarah died,
Oh, I
and
know.
40 when he met
That's the one that-
Rebekah.
Oh, this one is heavy. Yes.
Of course, like Ruth Ann said, there's a lot of traveling going on between the time the servant went to go get Rebekah and the time they came back, too.
So I'm assuming these caves would have been like in the side of a mountain rather than been
That's what I'm
dug out.
thinking.
Actually, mine says it's a deep cave. A large deep cave beneath the Mosque of Abraham. It's located. So it must go in the ground, not on the side. Maybe that's why he felt it so appealing, because
Could be,
it wasn't sticking out.
yeah. What was interesting is when I took one class in seminary, the professor was an archaeologist. So as we would go through parts of the Bible, he would bring up a website he had access to, and he would show us some of the digs he was on or the area of the Holy Land that we're reading about. And it had a 360-degree view. It's like, wow. And he was a young
Yeah,
professor.
cool.
The kid was like,
Kid.
he was like 28. So,
He was a kid.
yeah, really good professor. So, one of the benefits of, huh?
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
To see what you're
Yeah.
actually talking about.
Yeah, that was a good class.
So Abraham must have known about the cave ahead of time.
I think
before he
so.
passed it, been
I
past
think
it.
so.
Well, it was in the land that he was always, a nomad in, wasn't he?
Mhm.
He's probably been all over that place.
Yeah, they traveled quite often.
So why was he with the Hittites? And,
Well, the Hittites lived there
okay.
at the time.
So the end of verse 20, deeded. You wonder if it was a written document or where maybe we're at the gate of a city where all the negotiations would happen.
Could be.
Sometimes they traded shoes.
Mm-hmm. Deeded to Abraham as a burial site.
It actually mentions being the deed to the land or whatever twice in there, so I was wondering about that too, but it says in the presence of all the people, so I just kind of assumed it was a verbal declaration sort of thing back then.
That
And
could be.
with witnesses. So
Could be.
this is your field, these are the boundaries.
We didn't need to go to Tom's office and get it registered.
It was verbally deeded in front of all the people. It wouldn't hold up in court, would it, Tom?
Well, mine.
They have witnesses, it should.
Yeah, sounds like they had quite a few witnesses in the presence of all the Hittites who had come to the gate of the city. And we know the gate of the city is where all the important stuff happened anyway. So Sarah gets buried. Short chapter. Chapter 24. What do we see here in chapter 24?
I think it's interesting for 24, that the start of it is put your hand under my thigh, that that's their form of.
I thought
Yeah,
that was really
spitting in your
interesting,
hand
too.
and shaking
Yeah.
it like the
Yeah.
little kids.
What
Yeah.
happened with the Me Too movement?
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was kind of gross. Whenever I see that, put your hand under my thigh, it just creeps me out.
I was thinking the same thing.
It does. And when I tell you guys what it really is about, you're gonna get creeped out too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, the chapter 24 kind of makes me wish, when I was younger, I wish I would have learned how to court women better. You know, just go through the process that they did.
yeah. If you want to see an interesting courting movie. One of the favorite movies of Christy and I is The Quiet Man with John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara. We watch it every St. Patty's Day. And they go through a courting process there. It's really, watch it this year when you get a chance. The Quiet Man.
White man.
Mm-hmm. John Wayne.
It's gotta be good if it's got John Wayne.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's a great
And Marina
movie.
Hara, isn't it?
Yeah,
Those two
it's-
Yeah,
together
yeah,
are
those
Actually-
very
two
good.
together.
They start holding hands. He goes, no, not till, that's
No,
after
no
this,
more-
and
no
that's
more-
after
No
that.
patty cakes.
No patty cakes, yeah,
Is
you
this a
can't.
Western?
No,
It's he's in Ireland.
John
He's going-
Ford wanted to film it, and it's in Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay.
They go over and film it.
Yeah, fun
So-
movie.
It's a good movie. I love
There,
that
I
movie.
spun off track for a little. Okay, so it tells us right in the beginning of chapter 24 that Abraham was very old, like he wasn't before, and the Lord had blessed him in every way. And we remember how God said he was going to bless Abraham, so he's continuing to bless Abraham. Yeah, so hand under the thigh.
I thought it was interesting that he wanted the servant to go back to where he came from, because the Hittites, if he had married a Hittite woman, you know, they could be have false gods.
Right,
And
right.
so that was his big deal, wasn't it?
Yep.
That you had to go back to.
Yeah, because we saw a couple chapters ago where we had the listing of all the descendants of Cain, and the Hittites were in that group, and they were worshiping false gods. They had child sacrifices, so they were really nasty people. So, and that's why Abraham says, I can't have my son marry any of these women. So you got to go back to my country, marry one of my relatives, so I know where you're from, and God will probably bless that.
Did people back then marry later? I mean, you know, if he's 37, because, you know, if he was worried about that, you know, meeting some Hittite woman, you'd think he would have gotten on this a little bit quicker.
Yeah. And you
Especially if
wonder,
Isaac's a pretty cool guy, you know?
yeah,
Start while things are still working.
He's going to
So-
inherit a lot. He's very
Well, right,
rich.
he's like a prince. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to the end of 22 where Rebecca's name comes up.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep. And usually when we get the genealogy, that's important too. So we know ahead of time who Rebecca is and how she's related to Abraham. So they're kind of setting the stage that, considering she is she the only female named here? No, they mentioned some concubines too. But the only one of the line is Rebecca, so we kind of get the idea that she's somebody special, and she's gonna figure in.
Kind of dawned on me that chapter 24, all the marriages were arranged, not quite what we have done in modern time.
Yep.
And so she's a first cousin, right? Rebecca's a first cousin of Isaac?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought it,
Right,
Isn't she?
Nahor, and then,
Because
Yeah,
Abraham-
because
and Rebecca.
Nahor is
Abram's
brother.
brother.
Very
And
relative.
her father
So
would be
it's
his first
okay
cousin.
there.
So
Yeah.
they're twice removed
Well,
something
whatever
or other.
that is, unless you want to figure that out.
What I thought
It's related.
was interesting is it just kept repeating itself like 3
Yeah,
times the
right.
whole story. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, we know the story. I'm like, why can't they just like flash to the end? But no, it went through the whole story.
So we get it.
Abraham told it, the servant told it, then he repeated it back to Nahor or Laban, and then back again. I'm like, come on. So a lot of this is repeat.
So the Bible tells us it's really important.
I know.
That whenever it's repeated, it means you gotta hear it over again and hear it again and hear it again so you remember it.
I thought maybe the guy fell asleep and forgot where he was when he was writing the Bible, but
Well,
okay.
remember, this is from an oral tradition.
Okay,
So how do you remember someone's name?
you repeated
You
it.
repeat it 3 times. So here, we need to remember this, so it's repeated 3 times. To us, it seems dull. Same thing over and over.
Yeah.
But when it's repeated, so we remember it, so we lock it into memory, and we can repeat it again to somebody else.
Well, he was a good, faithful servant because he
He
did
was.
this.
He
I was
was.
gonna say, I appreciated that he was praying for,
Yes.
yes, he was sent on a mission by his master, but he was also praying for the outcome of the mission. And in the
To
middle
be
of praying,
successful.
he
Mm-hmm.
continued and finished praying before he even approached Rebecca, which was part of, her going down and getting the water and coming back, but that he was mindful enough to pray in the first place.
Well, he loved Abraham. He was his main servant. He loved Abraham and he wanted to do right by him and God.
Right.
And that's probably, I think that was good.
I have that Abram was the relationship was a grand niece.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
what it says.
A grand niece.
Grandniece of Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Isaac would thus be marrying his father's grand niece.
Okay.
So it's twice removed, right?
I also thought it was kind of interesting that Abraham told his servant that if they refused to send someone, then he was released from this promise or this oath.
Yeah.
Because he did not want Isaac to go back there
Right.
at all, because God had promised them this land, and this is the land they were supposed to stay in. And he was afraid if Isaac went back, then he might stay there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he would release him from the oath. You're no longer obligated to find him a wife if they refuse.
'Cause
And he could have
it's
kept all the
impossible for
camels
him.
and gold and, oh, yeah. Once he found her, he put a gold ring in her nose.
We'll get there.
Okay. I was like, what? Lead her away? Oh my. I was like,
Oh, yeah.
"Ugh."
And bracelets.
And bracelets, yeah, well,
Yeah.
bracelets.
Let's go on.
But the gold ring.
Stuck on the nose ring too.
Yeah, it's like going, ooh, okay, I don't think that was a little weird.
So what I found out is that this servant, he was so devoted to Abraham because this is the same servant we read about in chapter 15. Eliezer, who would have inherited everything that Abraham had if Abraham never had an heir.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
So Pam, you're right. These guys really got along together. He loved Abraham, so he would do pretty much anything for him.
So what about the thigh thing?
Okay, couple different interpretations.
Okay.
Okay.
We want to know.
First thing is, it was like a handshake is to us. So, yeah, kind of weird, but it would be like a handshake. It's a normal thing, a way to agree. They're shaking on the deal.
But how would that even come about? I mean, why would you think that was the,
The olden days, it's so you didn't get stabbed. Shake
What?
hands so you didn't have a knife to plunge into them.
Handy.
There you go. Caesar should have known that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brute.
Second, that this is how oaths were taken. Once again, maybe you get real close. Doesn't make sense to me. And then Jewish tradition also offers a different interpretation. And according to this one rabbi, the phrase under the thigh really means that. They really put their hand under the thigh. And for someone to allow his hand to be sat on was a sign of submission to authority.
Oh.
That makes sense. I mean, someone's
Taking
gonna
away
sit
your
on
defense.
hand.
So if you're putting your hand under their thigh, you're losing your defense. So
Yep.
that makes
I
sense.
thought maybe because it's a major artery in the body and it was going to the heart and I don't know.
Could be. Could be.
That's deep.
Yeah.
I was struggling.
Sitting down, or one of them has to be sitting down.
Yeah.